Okay, Jesus Christ, we're almost there. Season 5. The story picks up 3 years later after the previous events, and it is jarring. We discover that Morgana spent 2 of those years in a cell, locked away with Athusa. We also quickly discover that Athusa has no real purpose of the narrative other than symbolism, as the creature that once meant hope for the future has now been crippled and weakened, and we all really should have realised what this meant for the finale. Meanwhile, Gwen is a girl boss queen and has had a complete personality makeover. The moments where we get to see her ruling are genuinely cool, but it's only in the first 2 episodes and then in the finale where this happens. We're told that Camelot has been prospering, but that a few knights haven't returned from the most recent mission. The 2-parter opener is fine. The thing that carries it are the classic Merlin and Arthur moments. The 2-parter has some of my favourite exchanges between them.
You know, if Morgana doesn't kill you, I will. Threatening a king is treason, Merlin. What about threatening an ass? Heard that.
But the actual story is pretty weak. This idea of Arthur's Bane is introduced, and it's finally revealed that it's himself, and he will lead to his own downfall, which I think is only half true. This season is also where Merlin's loyalty really begins to culminate in an extremely unhealthy way. He's so determined to keep Arthur safe that he's willing to let Gawain and Percival die. This highlights the general problem where people pick and choose when to care for characters. For example, in the episode A Lesson in Vengeance, Gwen pins Arthur's assassination attempt on Merlin, and the knights just go with it. We don't see any of them defend Merlin when we know at the very least Gawain would never accept this. I mean, in a previous episode, Merlin was able to say,
What is the job exactly?
To kill Arthur?
Driving you mad, is it?
Not for much longer.
But I digress. This season shows Merlin under the most pressure he's ever been. He begins to isolate himself to the point that Arthur knows there's something bothering him and is reaching out to him the way Merlin was in the previous season.
I haven't seen you smile these past 3 days.
I'm not sure there's a great deal to smile about.
Except Merlin can't open up. From the first season, people have been telling him that only he can keep Arthur safe. The burden of this destiny has only become heavier because the truth is, it's not just about keeping Arthur safe. It's about the future that he will bring. So many people are relying on Merlin to help bring that future about. So many have given their lives that it's no wonder Merlin doesn't behave like himself this season. Episode 5, The Desir, is a perfect example of Merlin's change, and is actually a really great episode in terms of character study. First, however, we need to talk about Mordred. Though I haven't mentioned him, Mordred appears sporadically throughout the previous seasons, his motives constantly unclear. He is then introduced in the first episode of the season, Arthur's Bane. Merlin sees a prophecy in which Mordred kills Arthur, so from the start he's obviously very suspicious of this boy who claims he wants nothing more than to serve Arthur. However, as time goes along, Mordred proves himself to be extremely loyal to Arthur, and Merlin's suspicions are based on nothing but a prophecy of one of many futures, and knowing the future has never exactly benefited Merlin. Now, episode 5, The Desir. The pacing is pretty slow in this episode, with most of the season to be honest. Mordred gets to go on his first official mission and we get some fun frat boy night scenes. Merlin admits that Mordred is thoughtful and modest, but he's very inconsistent with these feelings. For once, Merlin should be listening to Gaius. The episode goes on to add some more late world building, introducing the triple goddess who is given judgment against Arthur. Arthur and the knights go to confront them, but Mordred is injured in the process. Arthur is distraught as Gaius has no way of healing him, and he will surely die. Knights see each other as brothers, but Arthur has taken a much more fatherly role with Mordred. He cares for him deeply and can't bear to let him die. He and Merlin return to the Desir to beg for their help. This is when they present a choice.
If you wish to save all you hold dear, if you wish to save your kingdom, embrace the old religion, learn her ways, bow to the goddess.
This puts Merlin in one of the trickiest decisions of his life. Let Mordred die and have magic banned, or magic returns and Mordred lives to kill Arthur. Earlier in the episode, Merlin has this exchange with Gaius.
What happened to the young boy who came into my chambers just a few years ago? He grew up. learn the meaning of duty.
So many people are counting on Merlin to succeed. He's learnt from his past mistakes. His kindness is his weakness. However, callousness isn't the answer either. This is another great episode for Arthur and Merlin moments. It shows especially how Merlin is no longer just a servant, he's Arthur's most trusted advisor. Arthur asks him for his opinion, and it's up to Merlin to tip the balance on Arthur's decision. In the end, he chooses to kill Mordred, but when they return to Camelot, Mordred is healed and the truth becomes clear.
You did what you thought was best.
I assumed the best way to protect Arthur was to kill Mordred.
A perfectly natural assumption.
But all I did was make sure he lived. That was the Seer's judgment. Mordred's life is Arthur's punishment for rejecting magic.
Like I said, the pacing is fairly slow with this episode, but it's fantastic in what it does for the characters. Also, real quick, did Arthur just forget that Mordred was a druid? It never comes up and they act like it's a secret. It's just infuriating that it's not addressed. Next, episode 6, The Dark Tower. The writers knew they were going to be killing Elianoth, so they decided to start the episode with a small Gwen and Elian interaction. I'd like to point out that this is roughly only the third time that they actually talk in the entire show. Gwen is kidnapped by Morgana, who wants to use her to draw Arthur into a trap. Morgana locks Gwen up in a tower filled with mandrake roots. Gwen manages to fight off the mandrake root's influence and shows that strength exists in different ways, and Gwen's unbreakable will is hers. Meanwhile, Merlin and the gang eventually make their way to the tower, and the show goes on to kill the one and only Black Knight. And it's not even for a good reason. It's just pure shock value, because at this point, Morgana has managed to brainwash Gwen with her magic, and Gwen isn't even herself anymore. For the next 3 episodes, Gwen is trying to kill Arthur so that she can be the sole ruler. I personally find all the Evil Gwen episodes pointless, but episode 8, The Hollow Queen, is good for more Merlin development. Gwen conspires with the man who held Morgana captive for 2 years, the Sarum, to assassinate Arthur. Meanwhile, Merlin is taken from the kingdom by a druid called Daigle, who wants his help curing his sister. The show really likes its lonely, skinny white boys. Speaking of which, we're given another example of how much Merlin has grown up.
I don't matter.
I never think that. We all matter. Have a drink.
We eventually discover that Daigle's not really a druid and Morgana paid him to get Merlin away from Camelot. It's good to see Morgana acknowledge that Merlin is trouble and ruins her plans. It's just nice for her to use normal logic for once, but it stops there after she gives him a slow and painful poison. Daigle returns to help Merlin, who is unable to move or even use his magic to heal himself. He's forced to rely on Daigle to follow his instructions. It's really great seeing Merlin use his medical skills to heal himself. The episode ends with Daigle giving his life to save Arthur's, yet another person that Merlin needs to succeed for. Thankfully, we reach episode 9 with all my heart, and Arthur is told the truth about Gwen. This episode showcases how Arthur really isn't good at deception. He only has to pretend that everything's normal with Gwen for a short while, and it takes so much strain from him. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and it physically pains him to watch Gwen lie to his face and not be able to confront her. Curing Gwen is another case of
He's super easy, barely an inconvenience. Oh, really?
and that's the end of the Evil Gwen plot. Before I move on, however, there's one final thing I want to address about this episode. In order to perform magic in front of Arthur, Merlin disguises himself as an old woman. So, is there a spell that can turn you into a woman and then he used the aging spell, or is there a spell that specifically turned him into an old woman? It's not just an aging spell because Merlin looks entirely different from Dragoon. So, what? What is with the show and having the most ridiculously specific spells for some things, and then not having spells for the most basic stab wounds? Okay, sure. Episode 10, The Kindness of Strangers, is an interesting episode. I barely remembered it because it comes off as filler, but there's actually some really hard-hitting moments. Alator is brought back just so the show can kill him off. Finna, a friend of his, seeks out Merlin to give him a prophecy, but they're tracked down by Morgana, who is obsessed with discovering the identity of Emrys. Though only briefly introduced, Finna's devotion to Merlin and Albion make her extremely endearing. Finna and Merlin are cornered, so she offers to stay behind so Merlin can hide. She knows that if Morgana tortures her for Merlin's true identity, that she won't be able to resist, and so she takes her own life. Having this episode so close to the finale acts as a final reminder of the sacrifices that have been made for the future of Albion. The episode ends with Morgana officially declaring war. Which leads me to the final episode I'll be discussing in this video, the Drawing of the Dark. This is the episode where Mordred finally turns to the dark side. It's an extremely frustrating episode for many reasons, but the main one is that Mordred was intensely bonded with Morgana and still turned her down on multiple occasions. Yet when his childhood love, Kara, is introduced, he continues to be loyal to her. He's shown multiple times that she's not the girl he once knew, but still believes that she can be good. He's blinded by his love for her, which is believable, but his entire character transforms the way Morgana's did. Also, if he could escape the prison the whole time, then why didn't he do it, I don't know, say before the execution?
Because everyone escapes from the dungeon. Have you ever noticed how everyone, like, our dungeons are the worst dungeon ever?
Anyway, the episode ends with Morgana finally discovering the true identity of Emrys. A moment that, while extremely foreboding, felt so good after the wait. This season really is a mixed bag. There are some truly fantastic moments, like the Uther and Merlin payoff.
You have magic. I was born with it.
And some cute moments. And some interesting moments.
It's hardly any wonder your prisoners are being murdered if you can't even remember who you let in and who you let out. You let me in! And I thank you for that. And now, apparently, I have to let myself out. Ah! Goodbye!
Despite my criticisms, I want to reiterate that I love the show. Again, I'm holding it up to the standard of a very different time for TV. It did have some truly epic moments though, consistently taking things from the legends and adapting them in creative ways. Every prophecy throughout the show is based on the legends, and it created a fun ramping of excitement as the audience waited for those moments to be portrayed on screen. The show fulfills all the promises it makes. Morgana will be evil, Gwen will be queen, Mordred will kill Arthur, Arthur and Merlin will unite the lands of Albion and bring back magic.